Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today is Debra Trappen. She is the visionary founder of the Red Threads Collective, a sacred community empowering intentional, soulful women in business to lead boldly, live their true selves, and weave meaningful connections. As a sought-after executive intuitive consultant, best-selling author, talk show host, and dynamic speaker, she is a guiding light in the women's empowerment movement. With her signature blend of truth wrapped in grace with sides of sass, moxie, and fire, she inspires her communities to embrace their divine calling, amplify their voices, and weave lives of intention and impact. When she's not sparking transformative conversations or creating in her Fire Up studio, you'll find her walking with Lizzie, her puppy, snapping photos, savoring quiet moments by the water, crafting haikus, or traveling and wine tasting with her husband and cherished friends. Debra, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Allison.
Yes, and I'm really excited to dive into today's conversation, which is all about finding your niche, how we can do it as realtors, how it will make us better business people, but also just human beings in general, and what that means and how we can accomplish that. But before we get started in today's conversation, I would like to hear a little bit more about you. Could you tell us about you, how you got started in your career?
You bet. Well, let's start with real estate. And for those of you listening who aren't women, there is going to be a lot of really great wisdom today. So hang in there with us. No matter how you identify, there are nuggets of goodness in here because I have been in the real estate industry. We're stepping into year 23. At the end of this year, it will be the start of my 23 years. So yeah, pretty wild. And I got into the industry right after the Silicon Valley boom that crashed down in the very early aughts of the 2000s. And at the time, I was doing executive recruiting and I loved it. But my then fiance, now husband, was doing the exact same thing. And we were like, oh, let's diversify. So like so many of you listening right now, you were inspired to get into real estate because you were in the car with someone who was doing the job and you were like, oh my God, this is really a job? I was like, this is an interesting industry. And so when I went and did my first interview, I realized that so many of my skills translated so beautifully into the real estate space. I was matching executives with their ideal jobs. Now I would be matching homeowners with their ideal home. And so that was really the start. Before I actually got my license, I did marketing for agents. And then quickly after I had my license, I was in a fast start class for the local Coldwell Banker out here in the Pac Northwest. And in that classroom, I realized I was in this industry for a reason, but it was not to sell real estate. Now, I sold real estate for 10 years. So I did the thing. I made the postcards. I did not knock on doors, but I did the open houses. I tried all sorts of things. And one of the things that brought me into the training side, the recruiting side, the mentoring side, really the coaching and consulting side was because I saw so many people in my time inside real estate, just my first 5 years alone, who would drop out. Mm-hmm. They would be so burned out. And I thought, okay, this is wild. And so I just planted a couple seeds with my leadership. And within a year, I was doing the recruiting for the company. Then I was doing the training for them. Then I was taking over the whole department. And I worked my way up to be their chief experience officer. So I was in charge of anything that touched an agent. Right? Any kind of training, any kind of education, fun stuff like social media when it was brand new. Facebook was just open to the consumer at that point. So there was all sorts of new things flooding the industry, new, exciting, and frightening things for a lot of people who had been in the industry for a while. And so it was an exciting time to be in that space. But about early 2012, I was at an Inman conference, which is actually how you and I found each other, through Inman.
Yes.
And I was at the top of 30 Rock, and I had this what I call like a Holy Spirit moment, where you're in the quiet, you're like looking out over this gorgeous city. I could see the park and I could see the Empire State Building. I was like crazy. It was one of those like Sex in the City scenes where you're like, this is my life. And I heard this voice say, "You're playing small. You need to move on. You need to do your own thing." And I was like, no way. I love my life. I loved working with the affiliate I was working with. I loved traveling the country, speaking at places like Inman. But fast forward to a few months after I got back, I turned in my notice and started D11 Consulting, which is still alive and well today. That's where I do all of my intuitive consulting. And about 4 or 5 years into that is when I met with Sarah Sudachan, who is now the SVP and Chief Strategy Officer at the California Association of Realtors. And she was working on some research about women inside real estate, which is a huge passion of mine. Women have been a passion of mine since I was a child on the playground. I was the cheerleader of all the friends, right? And so we quickly connected. And we did our first event together in 2017. And over 7 years, we hosted dozens of them for women. And really with the idea of men and women coming to the table with us, highlighting women and coming to the table with solutions to bring more women into leadership. The women who want to be in leadership, not telling women you need to be in leadership, but saying, what tools and resources do you need in order to step into that? And so I spent 7 years doing that. And towards the end of that, I had that whisper again saying it's time to do something new. And that's where the Red Threads Collective came in. And one of the things that I experienced in the first 20 years of my career inside real estate is so much of our training and education is in a silo with other people who are in real estate. And we don't step outside those borders. We don't welcome people in who are doing other things, doing great things in other verticals. So the collective really is that idea merged with what I was doing at the California Association with the program we called Woman Up. And so it's a place where women, whether they might be in Portugal or Australia or the United States or Canada or Mexico, and they might be in real estate, but so many of them are also doing other amazing things. It might be interior design, coaching, therapists. I mean, we have women from all over the world with so many amazing backgrounds, and it's a place where they bring their whole selves. And I think that that's a piece that's going to help us all heal from the division that's happening in all different areas, whether it's in the real estate industry, in our country, in our world. Like, we need to heal together. And a lot of that comes from just being curious. And so it's a big piece of what we do inside the collective is ask a lot of questions, have a lot of conversations about what's going on and how to build our businesses together, and also to help our cups remain full. And I like to say, like, when you come to an event, you have to bring a saucer because your tea will overflow onto it. It really is that kind of space.
That's awesome. I love that. And when I was reaching out to you to see if you would be interested in this and learning a little bit more about you and the work you do, there were so many things that, I thought made you the perfect person to talk about this. One is, like you just mentioned, your experience in real estate, and you've been through this, you've been in the weeds, what happens, what's going on, but you also work with so many people who are outside the industry and can kind of bring that perspective too. And I'm just curious, in your time with working with women, and I love what you do. I think it's so special to be able to create a space where women can come and feel safe and really get the attention that they need, because so oftentimes women aren't putting themselves first, aren't reaching out, aren't getting the help that they need to really unlock a higher version of themselves. So I think it's really cool, everything that you do. But I'm just curious, and I want to know, do you see similarities to some of the challenges that your realtor clients are going through versus people not in the real estate industry? How do we compare, to other industries on what's going on? Is it kind of the same challenges? Are there different challenges? I'm just kind of curious about that.
Tell me more. Do you mean the challenges that are happening in our country or our economy? Like, what specifically do you mean?
I think, when you're working with your clients, and say you have a realtor client that you're working with, and then you have someone, outside of the realtor industry, are they coming to you? Are you coaching them and discussing kind of the same things? Or is it kind of a similar thread that, everyone's experiencing and feeling? Or is there anything that's like kind of specific to, the realtor industry that you're seeing?
Yes, is the short answer.
Yeah.
The deeper answer is, real estate is one of the most magical industries, especially for women, because there isn't an actual glass ceiling when it comes to, especially when you're on the sales side of this business, right? It's you receive what you put in. And putting in doesn't mean doing more, and I think we're going to get there. But what you invest is you actually have a return on it, and there isn't somebody sitting at the top saying no, you can't do more. It's actually an industry where they're cheering you on to do more, right? Sometimes a little bit too much in our hustle culture. So that piece is different, but I think people feel uncertain right now. They're not sure where to spend their money. They're not sure what words to say. They're not sure if they should talk about certain things on social media. Will it get them in trouble? Will they lose clients? So yes, there are a lot of threads that really do connect all of us together. I know that real estate can feel special, that we feel like you can't teach someone inside real estate unless you've been a realtor. And I've heard that so many times in my career. And while I feel like that really hits when you're talking about contracts or even listing presentations, but I think the core of running a business, we actually aren't the best at that. And we actually need people from outside the industry who either went to school for that or who have been mentored by the greats out there who can help us actually look at what we do like it is a business and it isn't just a side hustle or a hobby. So again, there is this bridge between real estate and others. Certain things are special and sacred inside this space, but most of it is really the same. That's the beauty of a collective, right? That you actually get to hear those stories and you hear women who are saying, the well is dry. What is going on? What is happening? Where are my clients? I've had, a luscious, juicy book of business for 10 years, and all of a sudden everyone's putting on the brakes. That is happening all over the place. And so now is not the time to retract. It's actually the time to expand. It's actually the time to lean into who your niche is and to be loving on those people, because the people who are running other businesses that are not in real estate are the people who are going to be buying real estate. The people who are out there making money are the ones who are saving for their first house or their vacation house or the upgrade of their home. And so it's such a great time for us to be building local community with those the other business owners in our spaces.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I'm always like curious how, this real estate world compares to some of the other stuff. And it's good to hear kind of you have a similar view on it where yes, there are some things that are unique, but really like we are all probably more alike than like what we think. And we are all experiencing the same stressors or challenges. And we all, are in this together, real estate or not. And I think that that's a really cool thing to know you're not alone and there's people you can lean on.
Yes. And I will say one thing that I do hear a lot and advice that I'm giving back is like, what can I be doing now? And right now is a really great time to be educating people on what it is that you do, how you help them, why you're in this business, helping them understand what's happening in the market. Why? Because saying it's always a good time to buy, like the best time to buy was yesterday, that's almost condescending at this point. It's like you have like be specific. Actually find a business partner out there that understands what's going on in the economy. Maybe it's your chief economist at your association. Like really lean into the content that they're sharing because people are uncertain.
Yes.
And what they're telling you when they're saying they're uncertain is they don't know what they don't know. They don't know enough to make an educated decision. And that is like the best siren call. They're telling you what they need. They're telling you that they want somebody to help them navigate it with ease, take the pressure off, and replace it with peace.
Yes. Yes. No, that's so true. I think that's one of the, best things, like you said, you could do right now, focus on the education side of things. How can you be that expert for your clients and how can you communicate that? And I think that is what we're going to get into a little bit too, is not only, can you figure out who you are, what you do, but also communicating that in a way that's going to make sense to the people that you work with and make it very powerful and very easy to understand, which I think is really great. And, like you mentioned, this is a great time to do it. We have the time now. We know, as you said, that consumers are out there hungry for this information, and how amazing of an opportunity is it for us to be the ones that can step in and provide some of that information. I think it's a really great time.
Yes, yes, yes.
Definitely. Okay, so let's get into this niche world of finding our niche. How do we do it? How it helps us? I guess we'll start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about how we can find this, how we can define it, and the benefits that it gives to both ourselves and our business.
You bet. So the concept of uncovering your niche or defining your niche is not new. It's called lots of different things. Some people in the industry call it a niche, like your riches are in the niches. We're talking about the same thing. It's about defining an ideal client. And the reason why this is so important and why I write about it extensively, why it's in my book, is that when I started solely doing recruiting and training for agents, I realized at about year 3, agents were burning out. And I would sit down with them and I would say, okay, well, let's talk about what it is that you're doing, right? And what I found is we hear this all the time, right? They were trying to be everything to everyone. They would answer the what do you do for a living with I sell real estate. And that automatically, it's so unclear. And it's one of those answers that when you're at a cocktail party or a reunion or any kind of gathering, that when you say you sell real estate, people tend to kind of back up.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, I know you people.
Yeah.
I have lots of friends who are in real estate, right? Like the 6 degrees or 7 degrees of separation between us and a real estate agent is more like 1 degree, right?
Yeah.
And the media doesn't necessarily portray us well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily portray us poorly, but it doesn't portray us well. Like you watch HGTV and they sign 3 things and they've got a house.
Yeah.
They look at 2 houses and they're like, oh, my dream.
Yep.
And so we're kind of set up to fail by the outside looking in. And so it's our job to say, who are the people that I really, truly love working with? Who are the people that really light my soul on fire when I'm doing business with them? Because those are the people that keep your personal vibration, like your energy, the feeling that you have, the words that you use are directly related to the people you surround yourself with. And we all know that when we're working with a client, they're like our best friend for that chunk of time.
Yeah.
Like we know everything about them.
Yeah.
Right? We know what fights they're having. We know what their kids eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like we become so entrenched in each other's lives that it's really important that those people like don't rub us the wrong way and vice versa, right? Because we don't want to build a book of business with people who we don't share things in common with.
Yeah.
And that's really where the niche focus for me came from. And the whole formula of finding it is really to ultimately help agents and their leadership, help them, guide them to make the decisions that they're making to help build their business. Whether it's, do I host a first-time homebuyer seminar? Do I buy an ad in the luxury magazine? Do I write an article for Inman? All of their business development activities, if they're related to a specific niche, it makes everything so much more clear. And so, do you want me to share the formula?
Yes, I would love it.
Okay. So the first part of the formula for defining your niche is who that ideal person is, right? And figuring out who you really want to focus on. And so I find the easiest way to do this is to take out a piece of paper. And if you're new, this is a little bit difficult, but if you've been in other industries, you can still do this in a slightly different way. But just bring out a piece of paper, grab a pen, and start writing out the people that you've loved doing business with. Just write out who they are, and then side column, write, what do you think it was about them that you loved working with? Like, what was it? Is it that they loved to get up early in the morning? Is it they preferred to meet at lunch? Is it that they loved to talk over wine? Like, write these things out. Is it that they never bothered you on the weekend? Like, seriously dig into what you loved about them, your conversations. What did you talk about? Like, really dive in and research why you loved them. And then do exactly the opposite. Write the list of the people who sucked the living life out of you every time they called, who pushed you out of integrity. And by that, I mean, we all have these fancy phones now, these computers that have a phone app. Let's just say it that way. And how many times have you looked at your phone and seen that one client call and you hit the button that says, I'm in a meeting, but you're really not?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. We want to get as few of those people in our book of business as possible. Sometimes it's going to be crazy Aunt Jane because it's crazy Aunt Jane. And sometimes we're going to have people in our book of business that we really don't want to duplicate. Our best friend's sister. And as long as they're not throwing us totally out of integrity, like, it's fine to have those peppered in, but we want a large chunk of our business to be part of that first group. So when you go through that, when you look at that list, I then want you to kind of circle the things that are similar, because the process usually shows that it's one of two things that pops up. Well, one of three things, let's say. Either they share core values with you, they share passions with you, or they're fulfilling your purpose in some way. That's why inside the Fire Up book, we talk about defining your core values first before you do anything in this business. Figure out what drives you. What is your North Star? What is your compass? And then figure out, what do you love to do for fun? What fills your soul tank? That could be organizing. It could be playing golf. It could be doing yoga. It could be wine tasting. It could be travel. It could be alone time, watching movies, whatever it is. But you go through the process of defining those two things. And then you say, this is my purpose. You define your purpose. Mine is I fire people up. It's simple. It's 13 words or less, right? It doesn't have to be incredibly long. It doesn't have to be a manifesto, but you kind of define these three foundational corners, and then that leads you to that niche, the ideal person, right? That ideal client, because they're honoring bing, 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 all three areas. And some of them are actually tapping into it. For instance, you might notice that it's always first-time homebuyers that you love doing business with. And you're like, oh my God, I never really realized that. And then you dig deeper, and I would ask you, why do you think that is? And it's, you love teaching. So maybe teaching is part of what your purpose is. You love guiding people. You aren't the agent who goes insane when the person texts them 3 times in a row the same question, right? It doesn't bother you. You don't mind teaching people. You might have been a kindergarten teacher before you were in real estate, right? So there are threads that you're going to start to see, and you'll be able to connect them with these different areas. So if you start to see that it's all first-time home buyers, then you know, okay, that is who my ideal client is. And you see, like, it can be a group of people like that. It doesn't have to be a specific farm area. It doesn't have to be a geographic area, right? And so once you have that defined, then you can say, okay, so what's their biggest problem? What's a first-time home buyer's biggest problem? And then you actually write that out. So first-time home buyer doesn't know what they don't know. And there's so much information out there that it's like analysis paralysis for them. Yeah. It's like, how many YouTube channels are there? Where do they go? How many times can you ask ChatGPT, what's the process of buying a home? I mean, it's overload. And so they're looking for somebody that can help them understand what they don't understand yet. So, that's their problem. And then how do you want to solve that? Right. And for first-time home buyers, you can then look to, what are the areas that we're in common? Do you love being in person with these people? Do you like teaching? Because you might solve it through a series of first-time homebuyer seminars in person. Like we've moved so far into doing everything virtually that we've forgotten that actually people do want to get together. They do want to come and hang out and get to know other people and learn from an actual human being that then they can ask questions of and have a conversation with. And so you might understand and you might really discover through this process that you really do want to do in-person events, and you want to find, a mortgage partner and a title and an escrow partner and somebody who does staging and put together these really fun summits for the first time buyers. Or you might say, nope, that's not for me. I want to do everything virtual because I love relocating first time home buyers and they're not here. So how do I feed that? So you're going to, again, it all starts to come together when you ask yourself these questions. And then kind of the cherry on top is feeling. And what I mean by that is, how do you, as an agent, want people to feel before, during, and after working with you? How do you want them to feel? And you have to know who that ideal client is, who that ideal audience is before you can even define that feeling. Because a first-time homebuyer who doesn't know what they don't know and is seeking education, you want them to feel educated. You want them to feel seen and heard so that they feel empowered to make a decision. And so the niche statement might be for a first-time homebuyer, I love working with first-time homebuyers who don't know what they don't know yet, and they're seeking guidance. I host monthly first-time homebuyer events and have a YouTube channel that has A to Z how the process works, so they feel empowered and educated to make their next decision. And the beauty of figuring out what that niche statement is and defining your niche in this way is that when people then ask you, what do you do for a living? You no longer say, I sell real estate. You say, I love working with first-time home buyers who don't know what they don't know yet. You get the idea. You're repeating that. It's on repeat. And I'll tell you, there's something so incredible. We trigger other people's reticular activating systems when we tell them what we're looking for. We've all experienced the RAS where we say, oh, I'm going to buy a white car. And then everywhere we look, we see white cars. Or I'm going to buy a certain type of car and we see that certain type of car everywhere. Or I want to dye my hair a color, or I want to try a different style, whatever it might be, all of a sudden our brain is looking for that. And so when we can use the niche statement as a business development tool in conversation, first of all, it's free, everyone. It's free. And most people that we're meeting, especially our beloveds, they want to help us because they're almost always the least likely to be our first clients. The people who are in our inner circle, they're not going to want to open up their bank account to us. They're not going to want us to see all those intimate moments. So when you tell them who your ideal is, that allows them to release some of the guilt and shame for not using you because they're like, oh my gosh, I have 5 people that I can introduce you to. I met 5 new couples this weekend at church or at the playground or whatever it might be that would be a perfect fit because they're looking for their first home, right? Or it gives you that opportunity to have something of value in your bag that you're inviting people to that next event that you're hosting, whether it's a landing page where they can sign up or an email where they can message you. It's not just the traditional, hey, let me know if you got anybody in your life who needs to buy or sell real estate. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it falls flat for 99% of us because it's like, oh yeah, sure, if I think of somebody. But when you tell them who it is, it helps them find them for you.
And it sounds like that just comes off so genuinely and it just opens up, those lines of communications. It sets the stage and those expectations. You're knowing them up front. I mean, how amazing is that you are just knowing that off the bat? I mean, instead of having to, waste so many times trying to uncover it and trying to get to what you really want, when you're communicating in that way, I think you're saving yourself a lot of time and you're really just opening yourself up into being more genuine and allowing people to see you for who you are. I think that's really amazing.
Thank you. And it's a way for us to implement authenticity, because in real estate, over the last 10 years, the word authentic or be authentic or bring your authentic self to the table is used a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And how you do that isn't included.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, just be yourself.
Yeah.
Well, help.
Okay. What else am I supposed to be? Yeah.
I mean, most people don't really actually know themselves when they're in their 20s and their 30s and even into their 40s. It's like, well, like, I'm just trying to survive over here. Like, where's my next client coming from? And so to say be authentic falls flat again. Yeah. But if you actually are telling them, this is the heart, these are the people I love to serve. What you're not saying is, I only serve these people. So for those of you who are feeling a little FOMO on some of the clients that you might miss out on, it's okay. Again, you're going to have a percentage of your business that isn't this bullseye. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for you to have that bullseye. And it's fine to welcome that 20% in that isn't in there. But beyond just the introduction piece, it helps you, again, with what I was saying earlier, like, do I want to attend that conference? Do I want to say yes to that opportunity? Where in my business do I need a mentor? If you've never hosted a first-time home buyer seminar, then you know that you need to find somebody in your office or in your area or somewhere in the world who has done such a thing, so that you can learn and hone that skill. And it helps fill your day with activities that are actually productive, that aren't that senseless hustle that the industry has really lauded for many, many, many years. And it's time to ditch that senseless hustle. It's time to fill our days with activities and conversations that actually matter most to us. And we're the only ones who can define that, not anyone else. And that's why quieting down, defining your values, figuring out really what it is that sets your soul on fire, those conversations, those activities, those places, those people, those things that really just, give you a tingle in your tummy, right? And then really defining what your purpose is, so that when you come into a situation where somebody asks you a question about real estate, where somebody asks you, what do you do for a living, that you have a beautiful, authentic response to that is memorable. Memorable is the key.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that this is so smart. I when we hang up, I'm going to go do your exercise you just told me to do. I'm going to think about what I love doing. And it really just goes full circle, and it encompasses everything. And I think you ended it on a perfect note, by saying, hey, like, when you focus on doing things that you love, your business is going to succeed and you're going to be happier. And who doesn't want both of those things? So I want to thank you again so much, Debra, for coming onto the show today, for sharing how we can find our niche, how we can hone in on it, and how it's so attainable and so easy to do. You just walked us through a really great way how to do it that I know everyone can practice at their own businesses and homes. So I want to thank you again so much for coming on. I really appreciated our conversation today.
You bet. And just a last word to those listening, your dream clients are already out there. They're waiting for you to show up as your full aligned self. So don't dim. Don't rush, root in, and trust that the threads that you're pulling are pulling you forward. If you need me, I'm sure there's going to be lots of links in the show notes to reach out to me. So please do. I'm always happy to talk about this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much for joining me. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.